Why did the Torah tell us he's the most humble individual that ever walked the face of this earth? Just saying he was humble would have been good enough. Because it's coming to show us that it was his humility that gave him access to God in a way that no one ever else had that opportunity to access. God is angry for the reaction of the Jewish people. He was ready to even, the commentaries say, forgive the Jewish people for the mistake of the spies. He was even able to forgive the spies for saying something so horrible. But since the Jewish people took it in and took it in as a fact and acted upon it by crying and wailing over it, now God became angry, and that's when he sealed their final decree that they will perish in the desert and not enter the land of Israel. Moses, the Talmud tells us, has a debate with God. As we know, Moses was the only one that could debate and negotiate with God. At his first instance, for 7 days, to accept the position as the leader of Israel or not by the burning bush. And then times over by the egel, by the sin of the golden calf. And so on and so forth. The beautiful relationship between Moses and God. One of a kind. The Talmud tells us how God comes to Moses, and the Torah tells us already, and says, Moses, let's wipe them clean. Let's finish them off. And let's build a new nation from you and I. Moses says, absolutely not. And that again displays his true leadership. An amazing leader, one of a kind. Literally like a father to children. Would a father ever say, if God came to him, let's wipe off your children and let's give you new ones? A parent would never say so. Moses didn't say so either. He was a true father, true leader. And God insists with Moses. Talmud in Masechet Berachot, page 32, tells us, Amar Rabbi Elazar says that Moses comes to God and tells God, you cannot destroy this nation, the nation of Israel, because the nations of the world will think you are weak. And this is what he says. The nations of the world will think you are weak like a female. This is what Moses tells God. Zera Shimshon analyzes that. You're going to see. So God answers back, they would never think I'm weak because everybody saw and heard of what I did by the splitting of the sea and all the miracles that surrounded it. So Moses answers one more rebuttal and he says, granted, but that was you, God, versus one king, one nation. That is not you versus 31 nations. And to that, God gives in and says, you are right. I won't destroy them. As the Torah says, chapter 14, verse 20, Vayomer Adonai, salachti kidvarecha. I'll forgive them based on what you said, based on your argument. And what was the argument? It was as we read. So the Zera Shimshon jumps on this Gemara and he says, whoa. What's the big idea that Moses is coming up with saying, God, you look weak like a little girl. Weak like a female. What does that mean? What's that all about? For any of the women listening or tuning in, that's quite insulting. That's his question number one. Question number two is, God performed way greater miracles by the 10 plagues and by the exodus of Egypt. What was the purpose of his answer to Moses to say, but they saw me do the miracles, conduct the miracles that I did by the splitting of the sea by Yam Suf? Let him recount much greater things like the 10 plagues or anything that happened in Egypt. These are the two questions that Shimshon asks. So look what he says. He says, when it comes to the whole idea of Moses coming and saying, God, you look weak like a girl, look what it really means. Look how you can never take anything at face value. Even when people tell you things, we have the choice to take it in and say, that's insulting, or we could interpret it the way we want. We could dismiss it, we could praise it, we could insult it, but we can do as we wish. Look at a simple statement from the Talmud, which we can take offense to. Now look how really the interpretation is. We're all familiar with Devorah HaNevi'ah. Devorah was a prophetess. She was a fascinating individual, one of a kind. The greatest of scholars and leaders came to seek guidance and counsel with her. She was someone very special. She was so special and so wise and so great that she actually trained judges. She took the men that were advanced and trained them to be judges. She even appointed judges to sit in the Bet Din. But there was something she couldn't do. She could not judge herself. She could not sit there as a judge. The reason for is because in our halacha, it dictates that a woman cannot be a judge. Why? I'm not supposed to tell you why, we should just accept it, but I'll give you an interpretation. We all know that the way God created women is that they are more emotional. And that's a good thing. And that's a beautiful thing. That's how come we're all the way we are. Because our mommies raised us and cared for us and spoke to us and were emotional and loving and caring with us. Men are not like that. Men are more rational, more factual. And that's good and bad. There's a positive and negative side to each side. That's why we come together. We merge. We grow and we build together. But since women are more emotional than not, when a case would come before them and they would need to judge it, they almost couldn't take themselves out of the bias of the emotion, overlook the emotion, and look at the facts and judge properly. And that's why a woman, according to the Torah, should not be a judge, should not sit on a Bet Din. Devorah had the power to train Dayanim. Look how amazing that is. To appoint Dayanim. But she could not be a Dayan herself. What was Moses telling God? God, you want to know the mistake of the nations? Their mistake is that you, God, always need to counsel with your heavenly counsel, with the Bet Din Shel Mala, before you do anything. And that you cannot decide anything without them. They kind of are controlling you. But now Moses is coming and telling him, we need to teach them that they're wrong. That their fallacy is that really God was the one who created that heavenly council. And not only did he create them, he controls it. So unlike a female is able to train and appoint judges, but she can't be one herself. So don't look weak like a female in the fact that you created the council, but you can't be part of one. Now we understand it. So what did God answer? He answered, but the nation saw what I did by the splitting of the sea. The Midrash already explains that everything that God did in Egypt by the 10 plagues, he was always seeking counsel with the Bet Din Shel Mala, with the heavenly council. But when it came to the splitting of the sea and the saving the Jewish people there, the Midrash says the angels and the council came down to God and said, why are you favoring the Jews? Why are you saving the Jews? They're screaming and crying, they're screaming and crying. They worship idols and they worship idols, even referring to the Jews. And God proved himself and went against the heavenly council and already proved that he's not, pardon the expression, weak like a female. That he controls the heavenly council even after he created it. So now God's on top. God's beating Moses. Now Moses comes with something God can't beat, and tells him, there's a difference between a 1-on-1 and a 1-on-31. And that's what the Torah tells us. Vayomer Hashem salachti ki dvarecha. I'm forgiving the Jewish people based on what you said. You started off with one. I counteracted it specifically with that. But now you came to me and said it's not fair play. I'll forgive the Jewish people. We'll show the nation that not for vain did we take this nation. We'll show the world that we did not take the nation of Israel in vain out of Egypt. What we learn from this is never, as we mentioned, never to take anything at face value. There's lots of pieces of Torah which might sound hurtful, insulting. How could God say that? How could the Maimonides write certain things that he wrote? How could any of our commentaries, our great rabbis, write as they wrote? Instead of saying, how could they have written it, say, maybe am I understanding what he said? Maybe am I understanding what God said, what the Maimonides meant on writing? Not that they miswrote it or that they are saying something so controversial and horrible. Maybe I don't get it. Again, going back to that statement in the Talmud, it seems at first glance insulting, so sexist almost. But on the other hand, if we delve deeper into it, it was for a specific reason why Moses said what he said, and God answered back in the fashion that he said. May we take from this the concept of emunat chachamim, emunat HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that if we don't understand something, we still go with it because it's the Word of God. And also the belief and the trust in our sages. Don't impress your own misunderstanding of the text and don't say, it's the author's fault. It's a concept of humility, of saying, maybe I don't understand it fully. And then don't shut the book and dismiss everything. Put it on pause. There will come a day where either you will come up with a revelation of some type of understanding or you'll hear it interpreted by someone else.